Hey, good morning. How y'all doing? It's Well Red Beard. It is a damn fine day to talk about a book, and today we are here for a book review. And we're going to talk about The October Country by Ray Bradbury. Read this in the month of October. I wanted to read this in the month of October for a long time. Picked it up a few years ago, maybe got a third of the way through or so, and for whatever reason put it down. Not Ray's fault, my fault, is what it is. But yeah, this was something that I wanted to read. I found this copy at half price books for like 79 cents. And usually a book like this is taken and put in the collectible section as a vintage paperback and marked up. The half price rule doesn't often apply to a book that's got $1.25 cover price. But it was cool because, like, when this came out, or based on what is in this edition, when this came out, he'd written three books: Fahrenheit 451, Tomorrow Midnight, and The Autumn People. That's all he'd written. This is I guess, pre Illustrated Man, pre The Martian Chronicles, pre all the other books that he wrote. Big Bradbury fan. I mean, I'm not a big sci fi reader. I'm hoping to kind of change that. I have found a dude here on BookTube. I mean, and he hauls all these sci-fi books, like these beautiful artistic science fiction covers, and I'm a big fan of that. I'm a big fan of buying lots of science fiction books. I just don't read a lot of them. So I mean, I have read some Robert Heinlein. I have read um Foundation, or is it Foundation? Asimov's Foundation. I've read a few of the key ones, but anyway, as far as Bradbury goes, I've read 451. I've read Martian Chronicles. I have read The Illustrated Man. Love The Illustrated Man. But I think that might be about it. But yeah, so this book I've done. I think there are 19 stories roughly spread across roughly 270 pages. It has some, I don't want to call it elementary because it's not elementary, but some black and white artwork throughout that is pretty cool. I mean, again, anything to keep the pages flipping. I like a little artwork. I mean, I think that Stephen King's Dark Tower, which I am in the process of finishing right now with book seven, kind of set that tone for me at a young age. I like a little artwork to break up the pages of text. But for me, I think this book is probably 3.5 stars. Again, I think the experience, the having a vintage Bradbury October themed book in the month of October was probably bigger than any individual story, in my opinion. And some of these stories, of course, like I said, it's more of Bradbury's darker, horrific type stuff than um, you know, than his science fiction type stuff. And so, but I think some of that science fiction type stuff still kind of breaks through, kind of, you know, it's a hybrid almost. Like there's a hybrid, especially between like some fantasy elements and some horror elements and things like that. But the stories that I liked in here, I really liked. Some of it comes off as a bit of like comedic, like maybe dark humor, or maybe not even dark humor, but humor. Some things like that. I probably liked most of those stories a little bit less. But yeah, 3.5 stars. The October Country by Ray Bradbury. I'm gonna read you a. So my copy here. Let's see here, real quick. 79 cents, man. So it looks like it was first published in 1943. Looks like I've got like the 12th, maybe the 12th U.S. printing, published in 74. But anyway, so I'm gonna actually give you a little bit of, what would that make it? A 50-year-old? I mean, no, so 1940. What would else? So 60, 80, 84-year-old synopsis. I'm going to give you a brief, I'm going to give you what the back of the book says real quick. There are some who would dispute the statement that Bradbury is the uncrowned king of science fiction writers, on the grounds that what he writes is not science fiction. The dispute seems irrelevant for, this is very hard to read. The dispute seems irrelevant for Says the Saturday Review, there is no getting around it. He is a superb teller of stories with an offbeat imagination, a fecundity of invention that he uses in all fields to write something that will hold you and delight you. Or, according to Time magazine, Bradbury's elf of fantasy is obviously only one element in a larger talent that includes passion, irony, and even wisdom. So, whether one wants to give it a label or not, one thing is clear. Whatever it is that Mr. Bradbury writes, it's a joy to read it. Yeah, I agree. I agree. So, some of my favorite stories in here, and I'm going to be brief because I do have shorts on shorts up for all these stories. And I also want to apologize because again, I read this in October. I know it's only November 18th, but I read it in October. I mean, going back through this, it was really hard. The titles are all like short. Some of the stories, I'll be honest, none of the stories are over 20 pages long. Some of them ran together. So when looking at this list of titles, it was really hard for me to remember which ones were my favorites. But anyway, so the dwarf, it's the first story in the book. I liked it. It is about a dwarf that frequents a carnival and goes into the house of mirrors and goes and stands in front of the mirror that makes him look larger. There's some trickery that takes place. That mirror is replaced with a mirror that no longer makes him look larger. So it's got a dark and ugly side to it, to what starts off as kind of a pretty little tale. But anyway, that's the dwarf. I liked that one. The jar, kind of another carnival type theme thing. It's a country guy. I mean, I call him country. I mean, not a lot going on, right? No TV, nothing like that, or at least where this guy lives. He wants to buy this jar. There's this jar at this like sideshow, carnival type sideshow thing. It's got something in it, and he's enamored with it, and he wants to buy it, and he buys it. The guy sells it to him, and he goes home and puts it on his shelf, and his home is now the center of this small town society. Everybody comes and sits and looks at the jar and talks about what they think they see in it, and of course, this story also takes a dark turn. There's some jealousy, and he actually finds people kind of lose interest in what is in this jar for whatever reason, and he ends up putting something else in the jar. I'll leave it at that. But that's the jar. The emissary. Um, uh, all these things turn dark at the end. It feels like the emissary starts off as a pretty story about a guy that's homeward bound, and he kind of um, homeward bound. He's homebound, but his dog. He kind of um, feels the outside world through his dog. He can smell the scents of the season. He can feel the the warmth or coldness of the dog's coat. He can tell that the leaves are falling by the detritus that's stuck to his coat when he comes back in. It's a pretty story about a man and his dog, a man that cannot get up and go outside for himself. But again, it takes a dark turn. Someone passes away, and the dog starts to come back with the scent of the cemetery, the scent of grave dirt. So that is the emissary. The Small Assassin. Cool story that you believe is really a look at postpartum depression to start. A mother believes her child tried to kill her in birth and is trying to kill her now after he's born. Um, believes that this child cries all night, screams all night, won't let her get any sleep, causes her to have pneumonia. The father doesn't believe it. He's somewhat supportive. It's tough. It's tough, for us big dumb men to kind of understand these types of things. But you know, but one night he goes to go down the stairs to fill up a bottle, and again, this baby is too small to have been able to probably get out of its crib on its own, but this baby's toy is at the top of the stairs, positioned in a place that honestly, had he not been paying attention, would have made him fall probably to a broken neck. And so it's dark, a little bit of, the bad seed, a little bit of, I mean, I don't know, yeah, scary child type story. So that is The Small Assassin. Um, The Jack in the Box, I'm not going to go into that one, but it's kind of the most, in my mind, the fantasy based tale, almost like a I don't know, like something about this one kind of gave me images of Hugh Howey's Wool. And I mean it's not this massive silo or whatever, but these this boy lives in this world with his mom and his teacher, and room upon room upon room, and wants to go outside, wants to see what's out there in the world. Anyway, it's kind of a cool story. Not one of my favorites, but definitely a different feel from some of the other stories in the book. The Scythe. The Scythe was one of my favorites. And this, a man and a family, a wife, husband, couple children, uh, through a through some luck, they inherit this house and this farm and this wheat field, and and they were down on their luck, like they needed this. They really, were kind of in between things, and the man, notices that this wheat field is odd. It shows you exactly what parts of the field need to be reaped. Different parts are riper every day, and it's a constant thing. Like every day, this field is shifting. Different parts become ripe. Different parts require him to go out and reap them, and it's this like kind of unspoken thing that, in order to have this house and to have this bit of comfort comfortability, he has to do this every single day, but he realizes that he's basically taken the job as a Grim Reaper, that every shaft of wheat or every stalk of wheat represents a human life, and he's actually killing people with every swing of the scythe. The Cistern's kind of a pretty story, kind of a pretty love story. A girl is telling her friend, her sister, I can't remember, about this story about this woman and man that live in the cistern outside of this, and they died together there, but as the water rushes out to the sea, like the water has the properties to give them a bit of life, so that while they were, I guess, unable to love and real, and again, I am paraphrasing because it's been a while and I've read a lot of stuff since this, but um that the water rushing by them to the sea gives them enough life to touch and to open their eyes and to kiss, maybe, in death, whereas in life they maybe necessarily couldn't. So anyway, it was a kind of a pretty ish dark love story. And then The Wonderful Death of Dudley Stone. I like that. It's the final story in the book. It's about a writer, and a fan of the writer, so to speak, goes out to interview him, and this guy was at the peak, man, the peak. He was about to blow up. He was going to be the next Faulkner, Hemingway, whatever, and just stopped. There's been nothing for 25 years, and this guy goes out to ask him why, and he was like, "Look," he was like, myself and this colleague, we were both writers. We were both coming at the same time. I reached a higher success than he did. There was jealousy. He came to my house to kill me. He was going to murder me. And I told him, spare my life. I'll never write again. I mean, the writer part of me will die today. You've succeeded. You've murdered me. But let the rest of me live. And he holds up his end of the bargain. He gives him the last two books that he was working on. Here, take them, destroy them. I'll never write again. Just let me live. And again, so we're looking at that 25 years later, and the guy's like, "Look, I mean, I was at the books that he burnt, the books that he took, they were shit. I mean, I basically died at my peak. I died at the top of what I was going to do writer wise, and I still got to live." So anyway, cool look at that. Cool look at, I guess, authors and fiction literature in general. But yeah. So this is The October Country by Ray Bradbury. Again, read it in the month of October. Perfect, perfect for that. Story wise, I'm probably 3.5 stars. But yeah, big Bradbury fan. Big book fan in general. Man, I love him. So this is Well Red Beard. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you're enjoying all your books, all of them, as much as I am. If not, you're reading the wrong damn books.